Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, or I should rather say good evening, and the map rather reflects that nicely. A night attack from the German forces on some unsuspecting allies. Let's go have a look who has the honor of being the allies. It is Mr. H.F. JeongTime, or JeongTime, I'm not entirely sure, it sounds Chinese or something like that. And I'm afraid I'm not really into pronouncing that too well. So my apologies if it is pronounced improperly, but nonetheless, as the 4th Infantry Division ready to fight for Uncle Sam against the German army, and who shall be leading them? Why, none other than me, ImperialDane of the 352nd Grenadier Division, ready to beat the armies up right here near some French village with a daring night attack in the hopes of throwing back the Allied lines a bit. And we shall start up, and while we're busying the usual setup, we of course seen there's going to be a barracks right there, and there'll be the usual Krieg barracks there, so nothing unusual there. But right through the center of the map, of course, 3 victory points, small village, does make for a lot of shot traps, and of course maneuvering, which can certainly not always be to the advantage of the Wehrmacht, since they of course are much better at long range, whereas the Americans could use it to get close to them, and with the engineers with flamethrowers and whatnot. Only medium yield fuel points right next to the base. High yield munitions at the peripheral victory points as well, all protected by some rather easy to cut off strategic points and some other bits as well. We do see engineers going for these rather outlying munitions point, and this one does have a tendency of getting ignored since it doesn't really lead up to anything. It's a bit more secluded. In fact, it's more or less in the position of the southern commander, since there's going to be absolutely no way to actually get to it unless you knock this one out, and if you're already there, why not proceed to knock out the rest of the base. Anyhow, first Volksgrenadier team has arrived on the field, and what do we see down here? Some riflemen sneaking out. And we do see some barbed wire going up here, rather usual to prevent any sort of early harassment, particularly from riflemen. Engineers of course can easily bypass this by just cutting the wire, but for against riflemen it's certainly going to be a bit of a help. And Volksgrenadiers continuing to march out slowly. Volksgrenadier team number 2 on the way. We do see these riflemen being a bit more focused, might be going for this munitions point, they might not. We shall have to see, and there we go, while the engineers will be probably taking this strategic point and linking up. Volksgrenadiers continuing their advance slowly, pioneers joining up as well, and these finally done setting up the barbed wire, continuing towards this munitions point. But looks like these riflemen will be finished much faster, and they'll probably be spotting my Volksgrenadiers via the minimap, or at least something's taking the territory. Volksgrenadiers quick to seek cover inside the cafe, but there's one tiny detail. These windows are absolutely useless, so you can't actually use this building for any defense from that point. And so the Volksgrenadiers are pulling back, linking up with the second team, giving them some extra firepower. We do see a second rifleman team sneaking in. We'll have to see what they do, but these Volksgrenadiers are quick to seek cover through here, the small area of the cafe and right at the stone wall, and certainly going to be outnumbering these riflemen, but of course it's certainly still going to be tying up 2 Volksgrenadier teams. And now we have a second team maneuvering in for flank, and of course cover being directional, these Volksgrenadiers will certainly benefit from it. So maneuvering my teams in for a slightly more advantageous situation. Volksgrenadier is going to be briefly out in the open, but at the same time they can flank these riflemen, who are suddenly now in a slightly more unfortunate position. For some reason they do not retreat down to a lot of health, and getting focused down by a lot of Volksgrenadiers, and oh dear, an entire rifleman team cut down in seconds. Pioneers engaging these engineers. Don't know who will win this, but certainly this fight was rather swiftly turned to the advantage of the Wehrmacht by the simple act of flanking and firing on these riflemen from their less fortified position. MG42 team setting up in the cafe, this side actually offering some windows to fire out of. And we have a motorbike as well, opting for a bit of reconnaissance that can certainly be helpful to spot any flanking attempts in this rather dense urban map. less depleted Foes Grenadier team moving in here to try and stop these engineers and assist the pioneers, while the Foes Grenadiers here are holding out with the help of this MG42 and now the bike. Engineers also sneaking in. We'll probably be seeing some flamethrowers since they're so absolutely bold to rush in. Not new, and there we go. Other Foes Grenadier team setting up right here in this building, which certainly is offering a few better windows. Only one there, but the riflemen are quick to run right into the more open part, and MG42, which has vacated the cafe, quickly gets out and opens fire on the second rifleman team, causing a larger rout for the American forces. But certainly I have taken quite a beating as well. My Foes Grenadier teams are down to 3 men each and are quite beaten in terms of health as well. Only a motorcycle and an MG42 really in any decent position, and of course these pioneers busy laying down mines. Going for a Reich headquarters skirmish phase sort of thing, and we see something else coming out of this barracks. Could be we see the BAR or a third rifleman team. No, that's there actually. He has replaced the one lost. We shall have to see what comes out. Looks like there are further flamethrowers. No, apparently not. Let's have a look at Mr. JeongTime. And we do see the BAR upgrade Browning automatic rifle, which does mean automatic rifle. It was sort of meant to be fired from the hip while on the move, and was actually a sort of World War I weapon. Bit of an LMG, but not quite nonetheless. It could also act a bit as an assault rifle. And bike being the only thing to really hold back the American advance, but it can certainly act as a spotter for this MG42 and increase the odds. Riflemen hitting a mine and quick to retreat. So not a bad idea. And we see I've set up some barbed wire here and there to decrease the maneuverability of the American forces, and of course increase the strength of this by ensuring it can only be hit from only one position. But of course engineers can cut through barbed wire, so of course not the best, but still it can grant increased time for responsiveness, and Foes Grenadiers being reinforced slowly while the Krieg barracks is going up. Looks like these engineers are setting up right here with some flamethrowers, and pioneers a bit on the sneakiness. And we do see a harassment attempt right here in the south. Certainly not a bad idea. If the direct approach isn't working, then usually going from some other approach and trying to force your opponent out into some other angle works quite well. And further riflemen hitting the field, while I'm of course getting the Krieg barracks up, and we'll probably be seeing some Grenadiers, as I have spotted the BARs, and by knowing that I also know I won't be having to worry about any armored cars right away, so I can wait a bit and get something else. Spotting this, and these Foes Grenadiers will be maneuvered down there. The 352nd does not like harassment. MG42 with the pioneers still holding their further mines being laid down to sort of protect the MG42 and also set up some sort of retreat path. Foes Grenadiers moving in. For some reason I was keen on flanking, and of course works better through here, but not really the best position. And of course several Foes Grenadiers are paying for this bit of folly. Pioneers with flamethrowers also maneuvering in. Bike moving in from the north to take some fire there. And one rifleman down, but really 4 Foes Grenadiers for only one rifleman. Perhaps not the best engagement, and I'll of course happily admit that. But sometimes trying something bold can work off, and sometimes it does not. And that was one of the cases it did not. But now pioneers with flamethrowers setting up right here, and this is in exact range. Grenadiers now are moving in from this approach once more, really keeping the pressure up on the riflemen, who cannot take it and are retreating. Stick grenade going off and not really hitting it, also known as the Stielgranate or Stahl. Foes Grenadiers once more reinforcing, and we do have a bit of engagement here. Grenadiers coming under fire from the BAR equipped riflemen. Grenadiers staying at range, which is of course the least effective range for this, but they're of course certainly better at that. But still BAR fire is not good, so they want to seek up some cover. The tree providing some light cover, making them a bit harder to hit, and of course they can take up position here, and as you may notice, directional and not quite covering. And of course now the bike is joining in as well to open a bit of fire. One rifleman down quickly, and we have a rifleman attempt at flanking that failed due to swift mining, and we see some engineers moving in as well. Rifleman taking heavy losses and forced into a retreat. I'd certainly have recommended that he'd gone for a medic station, since he's very keen on getting all of those riflemen. Would certainly have been able to survive these heavy losses he's suffering, and of course keep up the fight. And we do see a motor pool. Not bad. Grenadiers pulling back for reinforcements, possibly also some other things. And we see this mines being laid down, but my bike spotting it. So I'll of course be aware that he is himself laying down mines, and that's certainly to my advantage. And these engineers were perilously close to hitting that mine. Pack on the way as well, and Volksgunners will be marching out once more for the fatherland to take on those wretched Americans. Further Americans now going through the south, apparently hoping for perhaps a bit of an envelopment with this sort of acting as a sort of anvil, and these other riflemen acting as the hammer to crush any forces that would be right here. Certainly not a bad maneuver, but this building is coming under fire from the pack. Armor piercing rounds firing away at this old cafe. We shall have to see how this goes. Could easily end up badly. Volksgunners maneuvering also to put on pressure on these riflemen. Certainly able to him to really tie up my forces, and plenty of flamethrowers in fact being equipped now. 3 engineer teams with flamethrowers, a lot of engineers, and setting off a mine, killing 1 engineer. In fact, it looked like it was 2. And these riflemen are taking a lot of fire. The pack apparently doing quite a lot of damage, in fact knocking out quite a bit of structural on this building. And the riflemen are continuing in from the south, but being held back by this pioneer team with a flamethrower most courageously. We'll have to see if they survive. And looks like this cafe might got down with another shot. And there we go. You really need to get your troops out of there before building collapses, or they will be lost. And a half-track as well, ready to aid in the south. MG42 setting up, quickly suppressing. Pioneers trying to rush in, but they are forced to retreat. The riflemen are still able to fight back while suppressed. Grenadiers rushing in to the south, and Volksgunners and half-track moving in towards the north. Quite aware that there's a mine somewhere, so I'm rather keen on getting in some pioneers with minesweepers, and there we go. And once more the Americans are forced back from the center. And of course, as I'm able to quickly disable his mines, he didn't really set up any barbed wire of his own or any tank traps. Could certainly have been helpful to at least delay my advances through here, and of course gives him more time to counterattack. And what is this? A half-track? That's a bit rare from the Americans. It's certainly not a bad unit, of course, but the Americans do like to have a lot of firepower easily. Anyhow, and we do see the quad upgrade going out for it. Certainly not a bad choice. A lot of firepower, which is certainly what it goes, but it certainly can also be used for reinforcements. And we do see riflemen having snuck in from behind, but are coming under a lot of fire. And we see this building being garrisoned with the MG42. And we see a bit of securing once more of this central area. The cafe no longer able to actually aid the defenses, though. I'm pretty sure the cafe owner will be a bit miffed about that. Grenadiers laying down barbed wire only to find this half-track moving in. Certainly going to ruin all their efforts. And they'll certainly find a nasty surprise as the quad opens fire. Grenadiers are quick to retreat, but 1 is cut down on the retreat, wounded and left behind. Pack will have to maneuver around quickly, and there we go. Shots being fired. The half-track taking 1 shot. Door is on the hinge. Another shot missing though, and 3rd shot might hit unless the half-track gets away. No, it doesn't. And blown apart. Crew members flying away, and